Thank you, Susan. Mary and I moved. We're now in lot 7753 in our motorhome now. We've moved out of the mansion. And we had a lot of company over at 915, and we enjoyed that. And so just go the other way to 753. You're always welcome. Now, don't all of you come at once, but we would love to have you come and visit. And I want to thank everybody that was so helpful to help us in the last few months to get settled in and now to get moved to our new place. And we're so grateful for all of you and all of your help. We're continuing today to talk about how a baby changes everything. This baby Jesus came and changed history, changed the world, and he changed me. Today's message I'm calling Entourage. There was an entourage came to see Jesus from afar, and we're going to look at that story this morning. Reading from Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. About that time, some wise men from the eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers of religious law and asked, "Where is the Messiah supposed to be born?" "In Bethlehem in Judea," they said, "for this is what the prophet wrote. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not least among the ruling cities of Judah, for a ruler will come from you who will be the shepherd of my people Israel." Then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men and learned from them the time when the star first appeared. And then he told them, "Go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. And when you find him, come back and tell me so that I too can come and worship him." After this interview, the wise men went their way. And the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was born. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother, Mary. And they bowed down and worshiped him. And they opened their treasure chest and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And when it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route. God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. It's true that babies tend to attract their own entourage. When a baby is born, people begin to show up. Almost always it's first the grandparents, and then maybe the aunts and uncles or cousins or whoever, the neighbors, the friends. I always knew when there was a new baby in church because there would be a gaggle of people surrounding someone, and you knew that in the center of that gaggle was a baby, and they were admiring this new baby. And of course, the parents love this attention. They love everyone making over their new baby because they are sure that theirs is the most wonderful baby ever known to mankind. And your oohing and awing just confirms what they already believe, that this is the most accomplished child on earth. They know it and want you to confirm it. You've been with those parents too. Aren't they annoying? Yeah, they are. Mary and I were convinced that our baby girls were the most beautiful babies ever born. Really, I know exaggeration. No exaggeration. They were beautiful. Take a look at these pictures and see if it's not true. They took after their mother.
No.
I actually did this years ago when they were in the room. I was bruised up for several days later. Go ahead and get rid of that shot. The truth be told, our oldest daughter, Melissa, won the Harlingen County Beautiful Baby Contest.
Oh, wow.
She was absolutely drop dead beautiful. And you know, we have sashes and things to prove it. Because she won the baby contest. By the way, I'm meeting Jane's grandsons back there, and I make a comment on how handsome they are. And the one in the middle, what's your name, young man? Tyler says to me, well, how good looking can we be? Jane is our grandmother. I like Tyler. You didn't know you were going to be in the sermon today, did you? Little babies tend to fill us with hope. When times were safer and we were less schizophrenic, it used to be fun to go to the nursery at the hospital and peer through the window and admire the newborn babies. Y'all remember that? You could go and you'd look in there, and it was so beautiful to see those babies wrapped up in those little baskets and plastic baskets. And really, they were storage tubs, weren't they? And see those babies in the nursery, it was a wonderful time. There is something about a baby that somehow fills us with hope. They are filled with possibilities and promise. Their whole life lays ahead of them. And when they're babies, we think of all the wonderful things they may become and do over the course of their life. Have you ever noticed how many times when there's a death in the family, that soon thereafter, sometimes within days, sometimes even before the person is laid to rest, there's a new baby born into the family? It don't always happen that way, but it often happens that way, and I wonder if it's not God just trying to fill us with hope in a time of loss. And those people that come see our babies often are coming with gifts. You know, baby showers. You know, when our girls were coming up, men stayed home during the baby shower, as it ought to be. Not anymore. It involves everybody. Everybody comes, bring gifts. You know, we raised our first child with cloth diapers. Y'all remember that, don't you? What a pain. There's not a kid worth that. When I think back on that, that's just so much. Thank God for Pampers. Well, in the story of Jesus, they came bearing gifts. And we, like the wise men, still do that today. These wise men came with gifts for the baby Jesus. They brought gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The gifts were an expression of worship given out of the overflow of adoring and grateful hearts. Throughout history, gold has been considered the most precious of metals and the universal symbol of material value and wealth. Frankincense was costly, wonderful smelling incense that was used only for the most special occasions. Origen, the great church father, suggested that frankincense was the deity's incense. In the Old Testament, it was stored in a special chamber in front of the temple and was sprinkled on certain offerings as a symbol of the people's desire to please the Lord. Myrrh was also a perfume. It was used in the preparation of bodies after they have died, before they were buried. It was one of the processes they went to, which was quite extensive in that time, but myrrh was one of those perfumes used in that. Those were the Magi's gifts to Jesus: gold for his royalty, frankincense for his deity, and myrrh for his humanity. I want to suggest today that wise men still seek the King. These wise men from the east arrived unexpectedly in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who was born King of the Jews?" Few biblical stories are as well known, yet so clouded by myth and tradition, as that of the Magi, or wise men mentioned by Matthew. For example, we could have sung today. This is not a criticism. Worship was wonderful. Wonderful. Did I say wonderful? It was wonderful. But we could have sang, "We three kings of Orient are." That's not even true. That's not even true. We believe there are three kings. We've actually named them. The mythological version arose during the Middle Ages. A legend developed that they were kings. They weren't. They were Magi. Three in number. And their names were, can anybody name them? You get to move up to the front row if you can name them. Anybody know them? Some of you do. Name them. That's right. I'll say it again unless you didn't hear it, in a different order, because that's the way my notes sound. Their names were Casper, and everybody knows who Casper was. He wasn't a king, he was a ghost. I actually got a Casper the Ghost for Christmas one year. It's one of my favorite cartoons. I was 16, I think, and it had this, really, that was a joke. But it was one of those things like a chatty cat. Hey, remember her? You pulled a cord and she would talk. Well, Casper would do that. I'd pull a cord. And this is a different Casper. Casper, Belshazzar, and Melchior. They were thought to represent the three sons of Noah. One of them is often pictured as an Ethiopian, which would be the black one that you see. A 12th century bishop of Cologne even claimed to have found their skulls. But here's what we know. Here's what it is true. The only legitimate facts we know about these particular Magi's are those given by Matthew here in this text. We are not told their number, their names, their means of transportation to Palestine, or the specific country or countries from which they came. Most people in New Testament times would have assumed the fact that they came from the east, because the Magi were primarily known as the priestly political class of the Parthians who lived to the east of Palestine. They first appeared, the Magi, in the history books in the 7th century BC as a tribe within the Median nation, or the nation of the Medes in eastern Mesopotamia. The name Magi seemed to come to be associated solely with the hereditary priesthood of the Medes. The Magi became skilled in astronomy and astrology, which in that day were closely associated, and had a sacrificial system similar to what the Jews had. They were involved in various cult practices, including sorcery, and were especially noted for their ability to interpret dreams. It is from their name that our words magic and magician comes. Did you know that? When you see a magician, you just assume he's got a camel parked out front. They were monotheistic. They believed in a single God. Because of their monotheism, it was easy for the Magi to adapt to the teaching of the 6th century BC Persian leader Zoroaster, who believed in a single God and a cosmic struggle between good and evil. Darius the Great, we learn of him in the story of Daniel. He established Zoroastrianism as the state religion of Persia. Because of their combined knowledge of science, agriculture, mathematics, history, and the occult, their religious and political influence continued to grow until they became the most prominent and powerful group of advisors in the Medo-Persian and subsequently the Babylonian Empire. Now, Babylon, we know where that is. That's Iraq there. It is not strange, therefore, that they were often referred to as wise men. Now, I'm not telling you to quit singing We Three Kings. I love that song. And I'm not telling you to get rid of your three guys and their camels in your nativity scene. Although plenty of people would tell you to get rid of that because they say they weren't there at the nativity. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But what was it they saw? Well, they said, we saw his star as it rose, and we had come to worship him. They were guided by a star. And afterwards, they went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were filled with joy. We're not told how the God of Revelation caused the Magi to know that the King of the Jews had been born, only that he gave them a sign of this so-called king, which was the star in the east. They called it a star, but we saw this star in the east. There's been a lot of speculations about what the star is because we don't know where it's at anymore. And there's been a lot of speculation as to what it was. There's about as much speculation about the star as there is the men who saw it. Some suggest it was Jupiter, the king of the planets. Others claim that it was a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, forming the sign of the fish, which was used as a symbol for Christianity in the early church and even till today. Still others claim that it was a low-hanging meteor, an erratic comet, or simply an inner vision of the star of destiny in the hearts of mankind. We don't know. I wonder, could it have been the glory of God? We talked about the glory of God a couple of times. When Gabriel spoke to Mary, the glory of God shone about them. When the angels came and spoke to the shepherds, the glory of God surrounded them. It's described in the Bible as a bright light, brighter than any light. When Moses, the Lord guided the children of Israel through the wilderness by a pillar of cloud by day, a pillar of fire by night. When Moses went up on Mount Sinai to the eyes of the son of Israel, the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a consuming fire on the mountaintop. The glory of the Lord had fallen there where Moses was. On a later occasion, after Moses had inscribed the 10 Commandments, he came down from the mountain, and the glory of God shone on his face. His face was aglow. And they were frightened of him because of the glory of God appeared in his face. When Jesus was transfigured before Peter, James, and John on the Mount of Transfiguration, when we see that story, his face shone like the sun, and his garments became white as light, the glory of God shining there. On the Damascus road, just before Jesus spoke to him, Saul of Tarsus, later Paul, was surrounded by a light from heaven, which he later explained was brighter than the sun. It was so bright that it blinded him. It wasn't until days later that he was healed in Damascus and his sight was restored. In a vision of the New Jerusalem, the first future heavenly dwelling of all believers, as reported in Revelation, it says that the city has need for sun or light because God, the glory of God, is in its midst. I don't know what it was. It was a light. They conjured that it was a star, and it probably was. But it led them from the east and lit over the place where Jesus was born, guiding these men along the way. They came seeking a king. These wise men had seen the glory of God and had come seeking a king. But what they found was a Savior. He didn't look like a king, did he? This little helpless child laying in a manger, in a stable, perhaps a cave. They had come to Palestine with but one purpose, to find the one born King of the Jews and worship him. The word for worship is full of meaning, expressing the idea of falling, prostrating oneself, and kissing the feet or the hem of the garment of the one honored. That truth in itself shows that they were true seekers after God. Because when he spoke to them, in whatever way it was, they heard him and they responded to him. Despite their paganism and their quasi-science and superstition, they recognized God's voice when he spoke. Jesus said, "When I speak, my sheep will know my voice." They recognized the voice of God when he spoke. Though having had limited spiritual light, they immediately recognized God's light when it shone on them. They had genuinely seeking hearts that the Lord promised will never fail to find him. Jeremiah said, "You will seek me and find me when you search for me with all of your heart." Some of us have come here seeking this morning. Some of us are seeking to be better. Some of you may be seeking redemption. There's something in your life that needs to change, and you're hoping to find some little tidbit of truth that will help that. Some of you are genuinely seeking the Lord when you come in here today. Well, I have good news for you. God is shining his light, even still. The light of the gospel for all to see. Seek Christ today, and you will indeed find him. Let's pray.